Hey everyone, my name is Hamaji. Welcome back to another mechanical keyboard video. Today, we're going to be building and upgrading a pretty budget custom keyboard. This is the GK61 hot swappable keyboard from Banggood, and this is a pretty popular build for beginners. It's priced at around $50 US. It's made of some pretty durable plastic. So this is actually a commission for a friend. He's getting into custom keyboards, and I thought I would introduce him to it. So this is going to be a cool build. We're going to be using the Gateron yellow switches. It's another nice budget component, a great linear that can be smooth if lubed properly. And we also have the DSA PBT black blank keycaps from KBD fans. So really nice. First thing I want to take a look at is this case. The stabilizers don't feel very rattly, but I'm going to take a double look at them and just make sure that they sound good. So let's take a look at how this sounds just stock.
Okay, so for the beginners out there, this is a hot swappable PCB. It basically means that I can just plug in a switch and it will connect automatically, and I don't have to solder each switch manually, which is really convenient. However, there is a bit of a drawback with hot swappable PCBs. The main one being that as soon as you step out of the 60% keyboard format, it gets harder and harder to find hot swappable PCBs for other formats. So if you're a beginner and you don't want to invest in a soldering iron to solder switches, your best bet would be to get a 60% keyboard, because it's the most widely available format.
Subscribe to Hamaji Neo.
Okay, so from what I can tell with the sound test, it sounds pretty decent. The case just does sound a bit hollow. The space bars and all the other stabilizers sound pretty rattly. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is take a look at the case itself, and that means upgrading stabilizers, clipping it, or having to band-aid it, or maybe just adding some lube into it, and then of course adding foam at the bottom to improve its acoustics. After that, I think we can look at lubing the switches and hearing a before and after sound test of the Gateron yellows.
Okay, so I'm gonna let the footage of me furiously taking out keycaps play in the background while I quickly advertise my Discord server. If you're interested in custom keyboards and want a community to chat with, I highly recommend you join. If you're a beginner and you need to ask some questions or get some help, or if you're an expert in the field and want to flex your keyboards, we're always looking for more people to geek out over keyboards with, so please feel free to join, link in the description below. Okay, so with the keycaps and switches removed, I can now focus on the stabilizers. So as you can see, these stabilizers are plate mounted, and that's normally not great. You usually want a PCB mounted stabilizer, but because it's a budget keyboard, it is what it is. Unfortunately, I didn't get a close-up shot, but these stabilizers can be removed easily by pressing against a small sort of flap on the top of the stabilizer, and then you can just sort of pull them out. Alright, so I'm starting to dismantle the case to see what's really under the PCB, and I was surprised to see that they've actually included foam. But it still does sound pretty hollow, so I'm definitely going to be adding some more foam of my own to further improve the acoustics of this case. So after some closer inspection of the stabilizers, they do come pre-lubed. They're not that great, and they do come with a little bit of gunk, which, oh god. It's also not very consistent, so I'm definitely going to have to clean all the individual stabilizers and then apply my own lube. So as you can see, the wire isn't lubed very consistently, and it's pretty bad. And they've also missed the very crucial part where majority of the rotation against the plastic housing occurs, so that is definitely one of the biggest factors as to why it rattles so much. Alright, so my process for cleaning pre-lube stabilizers, and this sort of differs for everyone. I just use normal hand soap and I pour it into a bowl. I sort of scrub it together, and after all that mixing, I get an old toothbrush that I haven't used, by the way. That would be gross if it was pre-used. Oh god. And then I sort of just brush each individual one, and that works for me. It gets it really clean, and it's like, completely new. Alright, so with the stabilizers finally dry and clean, I can begin to lube them. So a lot of people use different types of lube, mainly Krytox or dielectric grease. I personally prefer dielectric grease. It is pretty thick, but as long as you apply it minimally, it comes out really nice and smooth, and also helps to eliminate a lot of rattle, which is exactly what we want with this build. So after lubing and assembling all of the stabilizers, I usually do some quality checks, and for some reason, this stabilizer in particular was being extremely rattly, even though it had been lubed and clipped. The spacebar was completely fine and all the wires were balanced, so I was a little bit confused. But after some closer inspection, I realized that some of the stabilizers provided within the case were not the same. And it wasn't a case of two stabilizers being specifically made for the spacebar, there was just one odd one out, so it was really weird. And because of this, I couldn't continue with the build, so just like that, it was all over. Nah, I'm just kidding, I have some spares. So I was lucky enough to actually have spare stabilizers from previous builds that I made, and I was able to replace the mismatched stabilizer, and it now works with no rattle, which is perfect. So to further reduce any rattling of the stabilizers, I actually tried band-aiding the plate. However, the plate mounted stabilizers already have no room to move around, so adding even a thin layer of tape made it unable to fit and it wouldn't function anymore. So I was actually unable to band-aid the stabilizers. And as disappointing as the realization was, it is also a huge plus. It basically means that any rattle coming from the stabilizers comes from the bad factory lubing and clipping, and not actually from the movement of the stabilizers against the plate, which is awesome. Alright, so like I said before, I'm going to be adding my own layer of foam, but it has to be really thin because the case is already really tightly packed with this foam inside. I bought this in a hardware store, it comes in really big rolls, and it fits really well. And because this sheet of foam is so thin, I don't have to manually cut holes to allow the screws to go back in. I can just apply pressure and the screw holes just break through, so it's really convenient. Alright, so with the stabilizers upgraded and the case acoustically treated, we can now focus on the switches. So the best way to start off lubing any group of switches is by disassembling all of them and then putting them into bowls, or if you have a lube station like me, you can just use that to sort it out. For today's build, I'm going to be using Krytox 205G0. It's a thick lube that I always use for linears, and I really like using it because it makes the switches absolutely buttery smooth. So lubing switches is about as exciting as it looks. It really is just laborious work, but I can promise you that the results are worth it, especially with the Gateron yellows. Stock Gateron yellows are smooth and they feel great, but after lubing it with some Krytox, the switches become a lot smoother. The bottom out feels a lot nicer and the sound is a lot more rich and deep, which I really like. So yeah, again, it does take some time and it does require a bit of patience, maybe a good YouTube video or a podcast. But if you have a lot going on in your life and you are a little bit stressed out, lubing switches can be kind of a weird escape. And at least for me, it's pretty calming.
Okay, so we got pretty much everything done at this point. We just now have to assemble the keyboard. But before that, I need to clean my room. It is a little bit of a mess and I'm sorry you have to see that. So, alright, looks a lot better. Okay, so we basically have everything ready. We have the case fully assembled, lubed, no band-aid again. We have the lube switches, no film, that was just for the sound test. And then we have the keycaps, so we can start putting it all together. I mean, all it takes really is just a little. Alright, sweet. Okay, so already by just listening to the spacebar, it sounds so much better. Like, yes, there is a bit of hollowness, and that's just because of the case. Just a few things that I had to take note of while designing this. The profile is DSA, so I'm not really a huge fan of DSA profile keycaps. They feel very flat. I don't know how to describe it. I'll show it in a video, but it's very flat, and with cherry profile keycaps, cherry profile has slightly more curvature, and DSA just feels weird. And another thing is that this keycap set came with 2 different profile keycaps. Like these 2 that I'm showing here right now, like a completely different profile. I don't know why they've done that. Oh, wait, it's for F and J. Oh my god. Sorry. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay, sorry. So the blank keycaps, there's 2 different profile ones. That is for the F and J keys, which usually have that small line, which is meant to be like the home row to guide you back. So that's what that's for. Oh, I feel so stupid. I think this is a really nice build. So let's move to the sound test. Like for a really budget board, this sounds really good and it has a nice form factor. I really wish this was made of aluminum. I would have probably made it way better. I really like the design. I love how the edges aren't completely just, flat. There's a lot of cuts that make it look more angular, which is really sick. And I think the black keycaps honestly fit with the design of it. It's like a matte black keyboard, really. If you're a beginner just starting up and you don't want to go crazy and solder and stuff, this is a great start, honestly. Once again, Gator on Yellow is a great budget linear option. All you need to do is just lube the stabilizers, get a nice keycap set, and I think this is a great starter build. Anyways guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support this channel, you can join my Discord where we have keyboard people talking about all things keyboard. And also have a Patreon where you can support me, and it goes a long way to help me buy new equipment or afford new keyboard stuff. And with that, see you guys in the next video. Peace.